Story 1. My dog would have a personal chef, and I would finally buy those socks with pizza slices on them. Additionally, I would pay someone to argue with strangers on the internet for me. Story 2. Ideally, none. But I would quietly pay off my mortgage and start saving for the future with the funds no longer going to the mortgage. I would set up education funds for my children, perhaps hire regular cleaners, and complete some of the upkeep and renovations I had been postponing. Oh, and tell absolutely no one. Story 3. I would have a dictatorial portrait in full military regalia of my late dog drawn by Alex Ross. Story 4. Paying off all debts related to my mother, siblings, nieces, and nephews so that we can all have more time to spend together. Story 5. Me at work. Hey, I'm ordering from Chipotle. Do you want anything? Coworker. Oh, just some chips. I can't afford anything else right now. Me. Nah, I'll get it for you. Do you want anything else? Coworker. Yeah. A burrito. Are you sure it's okay? Me. Sure. Story 6. A second pair of pants, new work boots, food for the month, car and other debt paid off, restocking food, assisting struggling family members, and donating to homeless shelters, food banks, and animal shelters to give back to the community are important contributions. Money doesn't matter when you're gone. It's your actions as a person that will define how you are remembered. Story 7. Mortgage paid off immediately. A trust fund has been established for the family's expenses and education costs. The local food pantry is fully stocked. Several donations have been made to local schools and scholarships for students. Generous tips have been given at the restaurants and pubs I frequent. I still mow the lawn on Saturdays. Story 8. The phrase school lunch debt would not exist in my county, depending on the amount I won from the state. Story 9. I would buy a block of land with 2 houses on it. My parents would live in one, and I would live in the other. My pets would stay with me inside my house. I would hire a cleaner weekly for both houses. I might buy a newer car, but not a brand new one. If anyone asks, the property belongs to my parents, as that is already their plan. Story 10. I would be catching up on much routine healthcare I previously couldn't afford. If anyone saw my calendar, they would assume I was dying. I live in the United States, obviously. Story 11. The fridge is always stocked with name-brand snacks, never checking the price on delivery services, and mysteriously disappearing for trips every other month. Story 12. I'm trying to buy gifts for my friends and family constantly. How can I purchase houses for my friends while staying discreet? Story 13. I would immediately sell my house and travel for a long time around the world with my kids and my wife. After that, I would build or buy a house in the place we liked most. Story 14. An in-home library and a car that is not 5 seconds away from exploding. Nothing fancy, just something that works properly. Story 15. I thoroughly respect everyone who is helping those in need and making the world a better place. However, I am completely focused on building a haunted castle downtown to fulfill my unique and eccentric fantasy of living like a French noble. Story 16. I would buy a building and create a large dog daycare to take care of and foster dogs. I love dogs and wish I could own one, but I cannot afford it. Story 17. I would vanish out of existence because I wouldn't need to work anymore, and I would finally become a full cave hermit. Story 18. Probably putting on weight. I would treat myself to a large fish and chip takeaway dinner every night for an entire month to celebrate. Story 19. There wouldn't be many signs. I would have a nicer living space and a newer car, but my clothes would stay the same, and my spending wouldn't change much. Story 20. Well, moving out of the States to start, I would prefer to live modestly. I have no desire for excess, just travel, good food, and life experiences. Story 21. I would stay in my house and build a bigger garage and recarpet a few rooms. I would send out scholarships to certain schools. I would retire early and use my time to volunteer in the community when I am not traveling. Story 22. I would buy a decent used car, rent a modest apartment since I plan to move in a few years, and rent out the extra bedrooms to close friends while privately covering the full rent. This would allow me to feel less stressed in general. Nothing extravagant, I will stick to my career goals and plans, but with reduced stress. A few times a year, I would take notably large vacations. I would also provide financial support to friends in deep crisis, ensuring they agree to keep it confidential. I know exactly what I want to achieve in the next 20 years and do not want those plans to be altered by wealth. It would be amazing to experience less stress, more stability, and the ability to help friends who are overwhelmed and trying to navigate difficult times. Story 23. I would move to a small, quaint town with a lovely motel where I would buy my own house and work at the only diner in town. Story 24. It depends on the amount, I suppose. If it were just $1 million, I would give my children $250,000 each, share some with my mother and brothers, pay off the house and car, and donate to the local library. I enjoy my job, so I would probably continue working. However, if I had significant wealth, my mother and brothers would receive more, the library would receive additional funding, but my children and I would be starting a completely new life elsewhere, regardless of their mother. She does not visit them enough as it is, so she would not be missing anything. Story 25. Everything would only be marginally nicer. We have reached a good life, and injecting a significant amount of money into our neighborhood, schools, and social life would be super disruptive. I would become over it rich, not snooty rich. Money won't buy better friends, that's for sure. We are already on the upper end while having close family members who are struggling financially. I would feel guilty or wasteful by doing that much more. However, how we travel for family vacations is where I would definitely splurge. I would fly the whole family first class, bring relatives, and cover their expenses, stay in nice resorts, then get tired of the place after a week. Then I would return to my normal life that still feels relatable but is entirely paid off. Additionally, I would hire house cleaners on a weekly basis. Story 26. I would be able to afford my terzepatide again, allowing me to achieve and maintain a healthy weight. Additionally, I might buy some nicer shoes. Story 27. The smoke I leave behind as I and my pets hurried to the earliest flight to Europe, anywhere along the Mediterranean coast of France or Spain. Story 28. I would like a private chef and a personal trainer. Other than that, nothing else about my life would change, except I hope to be less stressed and fit. Story 29. Nobody would see any signs on my new wall. I already stay away from most people as it is. I would definitely avoid them more if I were wealthy. Story 30. I would be living in a well-equipped but not extremely large mansion with a 10-kilometer driveway as the shortest connection to the world. I envision a space for rest and hobbies, along with 2 to 3 Czechoslovakian wolfhounds, a spacious hobby area, and minimal contact with the outside world to manage my anxiety and autism effectively. Story 31. My life would barely change with just a few necessary home repairs. However, I would encourage my adult daughter to move out immediately. I would purchase her a modest home nearby and establish a modest trust fund for her, allowing her the option to focus on her art without financial pressure, provided she is willing to live frugally. She can still choose to work if she desires luxuries. I love my daughter, but I could finally create a nice home library in her bedroom and enjoy some peace and quiet. Story 32. I would move to the coast, to a quiet town, and live happily ever after with a couple more dogs and many books. Story 33. If I became extremely rich, I would want a private vegan chef to prepare healthy meals for us and someone to clean the house. Story 34. I would pay off my debt and set aside money for my sister's children to use for post-secondary education, trade school, or for helping them get their adult lives started once they turn 18. I would also assist my sister in purchasing a house for herself and her children, help my parents with their debts, and invest the remainder in a high-interest savings account. Story 35. The signs my family puts up looking for me because I disappeared. Story 36. I would be more relaxed, and I wouldn't stress over the cost of anything. I would also cover every bill for family meals out. Story 37. First, I would put half in a savings account. Then, I would spend a year traveling to various countries and cities. Story 38. I would immediately get a divorce. I would lose more than half my money, and you know what? It would be worth it. Because all of a sudden, I would have enough that I could just spend it all, and it would comparatively be worth it. Story 39. I wouldn't wait to purchase significant items or take a lot of time to read the reviews. I might just buy both and then return or give away the one that is worse. Story 40. I would quit my job and start a small business doing what I love. I would keep the fact that the business exists because I enjoy it rather than because I need it. However, quitting my job is far too impractical for who I am, so everyone close to me would immediately know something was wrong. Story 41. I would travel more and earn another degree at a nice college. I do not prefer flashy displays of wealth, and I dislike formal clothing. Story 42. It depends on how much I won. I would probably buy a new car, purchase a small house, and create an impressive audio and video sound system. Story 43. Cars that are not older than 10 years, although still not new, seem like a waste. I would also hire a cleaning service and take my kids on an airplane for the first time. Story 44. The $250,000+ Porsche and the fact that I would have infinite free time might make it obvious. Story 45. A few more substantial donations would likely lead me to retire from work, but I would finish the project I am currently working on. Story 46. I would have a cottage on the shores of Ireland, my own cabin on a cruise ship, a maid, and a personal chef. Other than that, no one would know. Story 47. I would probably just have a nicer house and car. I wouldn't flaunt my wealth or have a lot of extravagant possessions. I don't want to be on top of the world. I want to live a life of peace and prosperity. I might even keep my job. I spent 4.5 years earning that degree, so I may as well use it even if I don't need to make money. Story 48. Do you want to be incredibly wealthy? The people in my immediate circle would want for nothing, and I would isolate myself from those far removed whom it would be illogical to help. If I were merely wealthy, I would reduce my work hours to 8 a day and stop working on weekends. Story 49. It would be subtle. I would sell my 2017 BMW 3 Series and buy a recent model year 850i coupe. I would obtain a third citizenship through a Caribbean country's citizenship by investment program for myself and my parents, and I guess that's where the visible signs would end. The rest would go into real estate investments to generate passive rental income while I finish my undergraduate studies. Story 50. I would pay off my house and cars. The only change is that I would travel a lot more. I may also get some new furniture. Story 51. No one would know. I would quit my job after my 2 weeks and tell them I found a better opportunity, and then I would never be seen again. I will fake my death somehow. I won't put the details here in case someone has already found me, but I will be gone, and you'll see me when you see me. Goodbye. Story 52. All the things I would love to do to my car include getting a new transmission and possibly a fresh paint job. My 2013 Honda Accord V6, with 190,000 miles, is still going strong. Story 53. Not much. Only my bank, real estate agent, and car salesman would know. I have been broke and living a hermit life for so long that I would just disappear. I would buy a modest house and car, and travel without posting photos and tags everywhere. When people ask me for a place to stay or to borrow money, I have to say sorry. Story 54. I would buy a lifetime supply of Colgate 360 toothbrushes and unpack a new one every day. I don't know why, but the feeling of a new toothbrush is something unexplainable. Story 55. Our current unfinished house will serve as a summer residence, and we plan to have a small place somewhere warm for the winter. Additionally, I would purchase the hard ciders I always consider but do not buy due to their cost. Story 56. I would set up my parents, children, and grandchildren to ensure they are taken care of, spoil my grandchildren with anything they want or ask for, clear all my debts, and celebrate by enjoying a nicely prepared authentic Japanese F5 Wagyu tomahawk chop. I don't care how cliché that may be or how overrated people think that particular meat is. I still want to have one. Story 57. I am entering my Nicolas Cage phase and purchasing a dinosaur fossil for the front entrance decoration of my castle. Story 58. New clothes or apparel may be necessary. Buying them tends to be among my last priorities. I typically purchase them when my current items are worn out and I need replacements, or B, I have significantly excess cash beyond my budget. Story 59. That depends entirely on how much it is. If it is 10 million, there are no signs. I just do not have to work anymore. Story 60. Retired. My home would be clean and warm year-round by the ocean. I would be happy enjoying life to the fullest and giving my time and money to support children in underdeveloped nations. One can dream. Story 61. I would buy a ranch somewhere in the middle of nowhere and have some cows, chickens, and an old tractor. It would be a nice, peaceful spot away from people and traffic. Story 62. There is a sudden increase in tools and craft supplies at my house, and I am probably considering buying a studio to store everything. Story 63. Teeth and watches. Clothes would remain the same. I would still go to work, still have my bike, and my project car would be finished in a week. The only sign of actual wealth would be a collection of nice watches. Story 64. Get a few good kilts and a few pairs of durable jeans. Also, please restore my shoes professionally. They are an old combat boot that is no longer produced. It takes about 1,000 kilometers for the blisters to stop and another 500 kilometers for them to feel like having a cloud strapped to your feet. Story 65. Nothing overt. Dental work. A newer truck to replace my 1999 model. Hiring someone to paint the house, and charitable contributions. Story 66. I would finally be able to buy a house. Nothing extravagant, but enough to be comfortable and have space for guests. Story 67. There would be fewer hungry children, homeless veterans, and a few national parks might receive more funding. This could be noticeable. Story 68. My mother, my sisters, and I would all own houses in Raleigh, North Carolina. They would all have nice, well-maintained cars. All our debts would be paid off. Story 69. It would depend on how much I receive. I would probably give a 2-week notice and spend time with my children while I still can, as they grow up fast. I might also consider buying a new microwave. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.